Live now.
Awesome. Welcome to the Node.js Foundation Core Technical Committee meeting for May 10th, 2017. We're going to skip the stand-up, but Josh, you had two things to announce, and or were they for?
No, that's okay.
No, it's okay.
No,
All right.
Thanks.
All right, and I see. If you're just showing up now, I removed you from the minutes in under present, so you might want to add yourself. And let's really quickly review the previous meeting, even though this is something that we're talking about doing differently or not doing. Discussion about eagerly exiting process on basically promise rejections. I think we decided that we wanted Jeremiah here for this, so it's on the agenda again this week, and we didn't really talk about it last week. Util add util.promisify, that got voted in, so that landed. That'll be in Node.js 8.0.0. And then there was also upgrade OpenSSL, an issue. I think we wanted Shieki or someone with relatively deep crypto knowledge here for that conversation, so that also got pushed to this week. And I think that's it. Anybody? Okay, great. Let's move on then to this week's agenda. There are 5 items on the agenda. There's bring string decoder into the foundation. I believe Matteo put that on the agenda. There's the promise rejection thing we mentioned. That's Jeremiah's. There's restoring the debug break alias. I think that might have been Raphael, but I have to open it to check. Although I'm sure the diagnostics folks here probably have been following that and can frame it. The OpenSSL issue again, and invert dependency between core and readable stream. I think that was Matteo as well. Is that right, Matteo?
Yeah, but things have been cooking up for a while, and more or less it was me not being able to put the right label on the EPS proposal. The PS proposal, it's to some extent, the second one is a little bit updated, so we can talk a little bit about it and maybe talk more fully in a follow-up meeting or something like that.
Okay. I guess unless anyone has something they definitely want to make sure we talk about first, if there's a lot of time for it, I'm just going to go in order. Anyone?
I would add to this just a brief update on 8.0.0 at the end of everything else.
All right. Any other agenda items to add? Okay, great. So let's start then with the first one, which was bring string decoder into the foundation. I have not been following this, so what's up with that?
Very briefly, following up the same thing we do with readable stream. String decoder, it's more or less what is being released with Node Core in Node Core as the string decoder module, but repackaged for usage in the browser. So that's more or less what it is. Okay, it's a tool to run to have the same logic exported, and it uses the same as of now. It uses the same machinery of readable stream to do the same job. One of the problems is that it wasn't updated for a long while. So currently the most downloaded version is what was shipped, I think, with 0.10 or something like that. 0.10 or something like that. We did a release a month ago or something. 1.0.0 that was the one from Node 7. Okay. This module, it's being used by Readable Stream, Browserify, and Webpack. So it's on all the stack. It's on the tree for all of those three. So it's given that it was not updated, and I was speaking with Rod, and Rod said he doesn't have time to bring it forward and move it forward. we all agreed that it can be brought back to the foundation. All the source code of that module is based on all the source code module. It has the same copyright of core, apart from the build step, which is routes.
So is this is the proposal to have this be the responsibility of the Streams working group, and as the Streams working group agreed to take it on?
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm pretty sure this would need to be reviewed by the TSC, at least in addition to the CTC. And my inclination would be that if it's okay with the TSC, it's okay with me.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Probably just call for, are there any objections here now? Or if not, I can put it on the TSC agenda for next week's call.
I just want to clarify something. So this is so we have string decoder in core, which is used by Streams, I suppose. I don't know for sure. Does the same sort of dependency situation exist in core?
No, so this core has its own string decoder module.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, that's what I was asking.
Yes, and this module is just a repackage of that for the browser.
Right. So our internal Streams implementation also uses our internal string decoder implementation, I suppose? Okay.
Yeah. So everything is using, like, every node program uses core string decoder.
Yeah.
The string decoder that is shipped as a string decoder module is just using the browser.
Okay, would you see down the road a desire to flip the dependency like you're looking at doing with Streams?
For string decoder, it's less so. I would say less critical in the sense that there is no modification traffic at all. So we will have to think about it. But I don't think there is anything to plan for that. Like we might, to some extent, we might even decide to bundle it. I don't know. That is not like the full thing. I just updated it. I just looked into it because somebody tried to bundle it for some Debian package or whatever, and they found out that all the tests were failing on that one from 0.10 or something. So on a current Node.js system. So that's why I saw it, and it's not being really updated. So I fired up PRs on all the on Webpack, on both Webpack and Browserify to actually get it updated.
So the argument is that it is the same dependency relationship as in core, that a readable stream needs it, and that it's not being able to be maintained where it is. Yeah, I'm okay with that. We should bring it to the TSC.
Any other objections or concerns or questions? Okay, well, we have quorum here, so that's consensus. Next step is take this to the TSC. So I see Josh has already added the label, so it should be on the TSC agenda. I'm going to go ahead and
for the TSC here.
I doubt it, but it's possible.
Just finish that too.
You go. Yeah, I don't think so. It looks like there's like maybe.
I think it's probably only 4 or 5 of us here.
Yeah.
I think we need at least 7 before.
And I'm not sure that the same consensus rules apply to the TSC, although I imagine they do. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Great. So next stop TSC. When is the next TSC meeting anyway? I know we're going to talk about that later. May 22nd is the next TSC meeting. So assuming it can wait that long, it'll be picked up at that meeting.
Does it have to be a meeting? Maybe we can do
No,
it.
you can open it. You can open an issue on GitHub if you want to try to get it done quicker. I'm sure.
Yeah.
It would be better to.
My preference is to have it not have to go to the meeting. If we can get consensus before then that's ideal.
Should I open up an issue on the TSC repo?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll do that. There is one more thing that I would like to ask regarding this. In order to manage the publishing permissions on NPM, do we have a NPM team or an NPM organization so that it's easier to add and remove people without giving them ownership?
We have a NPM user that Michael. Sorry, Michael, I didn't know you were.
Yeah, I was just going to say we had a discussion on that. And what we decided to do, at least for now, was we just have an NPM user, but we use it as a backup. So we asked that for every NPM you add that user to the as one of the collaborators. But otherwise, we've still just been adding collaborators directly to the modules and using those for publishing. The NPM user is really just there so that if, for some reason the other collaborators are not available, we can use that one to add or remove people as appropriate.
Is that documented somewhere?
Yes, there's actually a pull request in the build work group. So it hasn't landed yet, but it outlines that. I can point you to it.
We do not have it of course, we do not have it in Breathable Stream. So
right, yeah, it's Node.js Foundation.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
You just add that user as a collaborator, it'll show up. It has the logo, and if you need to, just ping me and I can point you at the document point you to the PR.
Josh just posted in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you. I will get that added.
Thanks.
Okay. With that, I think we're good to move on to the next item, which is Jeremiah's unhandled promise rejection pull request. Jeremiah, you want to take it away?
Not really.
Do you want to push this to another meeting or push it back to GitHub or something?
Does anyone else want to give like a summary of this? I haven't been able to even read all the comments on it, but we've been sort of discussing this for like over a year is the thing. We have a deprecation warning that says we're going to do something about it, and we should decide to do something.
Yeah, this was discussed pretty extensively at the Collaborator Summit and a number of conversations just over the weekend with folks. There are a couple options. We can leave it alone as it currently is and just push it out a little bit longer. There's the proposal for doing the throw on next tick, which is not very popular among ecosystem folks that are using.
Sure that they can be characterized as that, but okay, go on.
And then there is the throwing on garbage collection, which the general feedback seems to be that doing it on garbage collection is too unpredictable and possibly too late. So it's at this point, we have options on the table. It's just not sure if we have any clear consensus what the actual direction should be. And it's definitely clear that whatever, among all the choices, whichever one we make, we're going to be making quite a few people unhappy. So it's unfortunately, based on all the conversations, there's lots of good discussion, just no resolution.
Okay. I don't think we're gonna crack this nut in this meeting. That doesn't mean it's not worth talking about, but I don't think we're gonna come to a resolution today. But I'm not sure what the path is to actually get to a resolution.
One of the things was talked a little bit during the collaborator summit was to not throw to not crash on an under rejection, but just print the stack trace for every unrejected an under rejection. So just print the full stack and keep going as an intermediate step.
You can already do that with -- trace warnings.
No, the trace
Yes.
warnings, what that does is give you the stack trace of the warning object itself, where it was created. It does not give you the stack trace of the error that led to the rejection. The two separate things.
Oh.
I'm going to move that this.
That sounds like a separate bug.
Kita just posted a link to a comment. I hope GitHub's comment links are working. They are. Hooray. So I'm going to, oh yeah, it's a pretty recent comment too. I'm going to move that we push this back to GitHub at least for another week. I mean, I just don't, I mean, the conversation seems to be pretty active. Seems to be comments as recently as today. And I wouldn't want to short circuit the discussion, even if it's been going on for a year. Go ahead, James.
Just one follow up on the part about the printing of stack trace. There's a recent addition. I did add the details for the emit warning. One of the things we could do is emit the stack trace of the original error in the details of the warning. That would address that concern. Not sure how performant it would be. I need to test it and play with it, but it's possible.
Is it possible to only do that under the trace warnings flag specifically?
It would require some fiddling around with the implementation that's currently there. Right now, if the detail is provided, it's always printed.
Right.
We can modify that implementation. I don't think it's shipped in a release yet. So if as long as it hasn't shipped in a release, we should be able to do it as a patch, not a confirmation.
Right.
I had a question about how hard would it be to change the spec to actually require asynchronous attached rejection handler. For example, is that even possible or not? What do you think?
Could you say that again, Nikita?
Do you think it will be possible to change the spec, the promise spec, to require asynchronously attached rejection handler?
To require you to add a catch somewhere down the line? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and to do this synchronously.
How would the VM know that you aren't going to add one though? I mean, that's the same problem that I'm facing with both of these implementations. Is I have no idea if there's going to eventually be one or not, and because modern VMs are not like reference based, it's very hard to tell if there's any references to something or not.
No, I am saying about requiring to edit handler synchronously and removing support for adding handlers not synchronously.
So changing the
that would
promise.
fundamentally change. Yeah, that would fundamentally change the promise model in a way that much no promise user is going to want.
Good luck.
And basically go against the spec. So,
But
I mean, it might be technically possible, but I don't think it's a good idea.
How could you?
What are you gonna say, Nikita?
I said that that's exactly what we are going to break now if we throw and handle the rejections on the next tick.
Yeah.
So either that goes against the spec or the spec needs to be changed to support that.
It's entirely possible that we might need to make spec changes, and one of the things that I want to do is bring that the possibility up to that at the next TC39 meeting. It would be nice if we could have a little bit of discussion. Some point we don't have to do it on this call, but discussion of what kinds of changes might be useful. And I think there's already been some discussion in that thread about along those lines. Some ideas.
Is there a more focused work group that this might be appropriate for, like diagnostics or something like that?
Possible.
Yeah, I do
This
think
is going to impact all of us.
I do think the
One.
postmortem or diagnostics work group are decent places to try and get more discussion going. But
yeah, Jeremiah, it's going to affect all of us, but I think that there are people who are really invested in this that you know, and like and the CTC might not actually be the right collection of people to really have a robust discussion.
I would agree with that.
Problem is, I don't want to like, you know, I don't want to leave it at that. I want to actually like have a group of, you know, I want to like actually have a home for the discussion. Go ahead, Michael.
yeah, I was going to say it needs to be more like, if you look at the diagnostic work group, it probably needs to be a group slightly larger than that. And same for the postmortem. So it's like one of those groups plus the other interested parties.
What if you combine those groups?
Even those two groups, I don't think have enough representation from the promises side.
Tell you what,
There are people. There are some people working.
Because I'm looking at bringing this up on the CT39 agenda in just about a week. I can take the to-do of sending out basically a call for stakeholders for the diagnostics and postmortem. Try to organize a small team of folks to sit down and look at the issue a little bit more in depth.
So yeah, if you could work with Jeremiah and whoever else to like assemble the right group of people, if you're willing to take that on, that would probably be a really useful thing, because I think that informed, motivated stakeholders are going to, like, you know, hopefully come to a better decision than, you know, than this, you know, kind of spotty coverage we're going to have here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And James, if you need any help, let me know, because I'm interested in it as well.
Okay.
Let's also make an effort to invite people that might not be that are not currently not collaborators. For example, Yunang, but that voice a strong opinion. It's probably part of
for those of you that are interested on this call, if you have specific people that you have in mind, send me an email.
I'll do.
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable delegating an entire final decision to whatever group, but
no, just a recommendation.
I will remove the CTC agenda label from this issue then until it stalls once again.
Okay, anything else before we move on? Okay, then if I'm not mistaken, we're on the we're up to the issue about debug break alias, and I guess do any of the, let's see, does anyone from diagnostics or postmortem who has been following this closely want to summarize where we're at with this?
I wouldn't say I've read most of the issues. I think basically we need debug. We need a mechanism to tell versions from 6.3 to 7.6 to stop on first line. Inspect break doesn't exist in those versions, so we want to put back debug break essentially to mean break on first line. There was some discussion, if we do that, should we take out inspect break? So I guess that's really the two questions. Is it okay to restore debug break, which I think everybody agrees on? And if once we do that, should we keep inspect break And it seems like the consensus is yes, keep inspect break, add debug break.
Has this been discussed by the diagnostics working group at all?
No, not like face to face, not like in an issue in Diag. But I don't know that it needs to be really. Like, if we have consent, like that seems reasonable. We basically broke people by taking out debug break, and we need to restore it and just leave everything else as is. Debug break means
If
inspect.
there's general consensus, then no objection to.
But
Saying if there's consensus on it, or appears to be consensus on it, then I have no objection to adding debug break back and keeping inspect break.
And we've got 3+1s in the sidebar chat as well.
What is the problem that we're trying to like really solve here? Because aren't people gonna have to like, I don't know, version detect or something to see if they should use like, I don't know, the debug protocol or the inspector protocol?
Apparently, they're already doing that. They just don't have a consistent way of breaking one start.
Does that matter though if they're already version detecting to supply arguments or whatever?
No idea.
they have to specify, let's say they version detect that they should use inspect. They also need to tell it to break on first line. And if you're using a version before 7.6, you're going to use -- debug break. And it's uncomfortable if you're using 7.7 to then use inspect break there. So I think what they want is just debug break works everywhere for a while longer. And then once we're all settled on inspect break, they can move to that. But in the meantime, they want debug break to continue to work everywhere.
Why would debug break not continue to work in the current branch? Sorry, in this stable release stream?
Because
We
we have a release where it's not there. So even if we add
breaking change,
debug break back, there's still going to be some inconsistency, and they're still going to have to special case a couple of versions.
Yeah, they're gonna be screwed for 7.6 or 7.10. No, only 7.9 and 7.10, right? We took out debug break.
Yep.
Okay.
why was that removed without a major version?
Well, we removed the entire debug thing because we Wait, did we remove it in the
7? I'm surprised that it's. I thought it was only in master at this point.
Yeah, did it land in something? I also don't know.
Shouldn't have. We should be adding it back to 7, but why would we add it back to master?
-- debug break works on Node 7.10. So
Okay, so this is just then.
this is just I think this is just master.
Oh, super. So then we don't have to worry about that gap in like 7.8 or 7.9 or something. This is basically
Very
just
happy,
In doing this,
very happy that it didn't actually get pulled back. So I'm fully expecting it would be.
Raphael just commented in the IRC only nightlies are broken and tooling, so like IDEs can't debug the nightlies because of that.
that's was that unexpected in some way? I mean, they're nightly releases. People need to update their things.
Well, sure, but on the other hand, they're nightly releases. People try them, something breaks, they tell us, and we decide whether or not it's something we want to accommodate or not.
It's also part in a lot of documentation around the internet. So when we introduced -- inspect, then there was everywhere -- inspect, -debug, -break everywhere. So if changing that, it's also collaterals. It's not just code.
And I think there's also we had a very accelerated deprecation and removal cycle necessarily for the debug protocol, and therefore that kind of argues for maybe it makes sense to be a little bit easygoing on letting some of the things that used to work, keeping them hanging around a little longer when it's possible. So doing something like this.
Other
Yeah,
than
and
the
there's very
basic
little
overhead
cost.
of parsing. I was gonna say, but, you know,
Go ahead, Ali.
aside from the overhead,
Okay, I'll go ahead now. So there's very little cost of adding --debug break back. So and given that there's so much documentation on the internet on it just makes sense to add it back in.
Back to you, James.
that makes sense. Gonna make the exact same point. Having it as an alias is cheap. Even if it's, you know, especially if it's an undocumented alias.
Is the behavior going to be broken for the tools or not? Like if we added as an alias, would the behavior be exactly expected by editors or not?
Sorry, Nikita, I didn't understand you. Could you say that again?
As I understand, that flag is being used by the IDEs,
Mm-hmm.
by the editors. And the question is, if we add an alias for the new flag and call it exactly as the old flag, would the behavior be the exactly expected one for that, or were there any behavior changes?
It will still be right, because even though it'll say debug break, what will determine in version 7 what interface or protocol it uses will be the -- inspect. So if you specify -- debug break on its own, at least if we do it the way it used to be done in version 7, in version 7, -- debug break on its own will activate the old one. If you specify -- inspect -- debug break, it'll activate the new one. And that is the expected behavior. And then in 8, you'll only have -- inspect -- debug break, and it will activate the new one. And then eventually, I guess in 9 or 10, they'll just use inspect break, and debug break can go away. Whatever, that's not even relevant. But last part.
So the issue has sufficient -1s, namely at least one, that it can't land until that gets resolved. So we can either kick it back to the issue for a little while longer, or we can call for a vote. The argument for calling for a vote on this now, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, James, is that we're getting awfully close to version 8 release time, and we really ought to have this sorted. And
Yep.
and the Knightley's argument is also another reason for doing it sooner rather than later. So go ahead, James. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say, I think I put in a change requested on that one. I think that's the one I did, just to make. I didn't want it to land before we had a chance to discuss it. But that is the one that I put the changes requested, and that can be cleared off because I'm +1 on it.
Yeah, there's definitely a -1 from Jeremiah, and unambiguously, and Ben I think probably just wanted tests and things like that, but he's not around to clear his objection, so that's another one. So yeah, I think this is probably headed for a vote. Although I guess, I don't know. Do we want to leave it open for a little while longer, or do we want to make a decision?
The challenge on blocking it on Ben's objection is that he's taking time off for his new kid, and I don't think we'll be able to get that resolved before 8.0 has to go out. So if we move forward, we're probably gonna have to do it over his objection.
Right. My question is, do we want to do a vote now, or do we want to give it another week?
What Jeremiah's here? What's the objections?
I don't really see what significant problem this is solving. Like, if we're already removing debug break and changing stuff in a major, I don't really see the problem with having people switch to inspect break in the same go if other things are already going to have to be changing. Which is my
that's a good point. Like to me, like when it was 7.8, 7.9, then like when I guess I thought that, then that was like, oh, okay, we need to address like within a major version, within 7, they shouldn't have to use 2 different syntaxes. That makes sense. Like you shouldn't have to say inspect break for 7.7 and higher and inspect debug break for 7.6 and lower. But it sounds like in 7 they can use inspect and debug break, and in 8 we're saying just use inspect break. So do we really know that there's a use case for inspect debug break with 8? I don't know.
There's a lot of documentation on the internet, and people have muscle memory, as Matteo pointed out.
Wouldn't one of the arguments that people who had like maybe purchased an older version of the software would not be able to use it with Node.js?
They won't be able to anyway because the protocol changed. Like Visual Studio 2015, for example, won't work with Node.js unless they have.
It's free.
Personally, I would be just happy in 8, just throughout the lifetime of 8, just keep --debug as an alias --inspect. --debug break as an alias for inspect break.
Even if we don't want to have the same behavior applying, just printing a line, debug rate is not there anymore, please use inspect break, is actually way more useful, because right now it says there is no option. This is not a recognized option, and big question how to find where that is. So,
yeah, I 1000% agree with that. Like we should not just remove those options. We should print something more helpful.
That is my suggestion in my objection.
So you're
I think so. Even if we end up like having it still be there, I think we should still have it print that you should use inspect break instead.
Yeah, a deprecation message for it would be fantastic.
So it sounds like our suggestion is restore debug and debug break as aliases to the equivalents inspect and inspect break for 8.0.
And print a deprecation warning when they're used.
And print a deprecation warning, right?
I don't know that Jeremiah wants to restore it as an alias. Go ahead, Nikita.
Would you restore in the debug as an alias to inspect be actually useful because the protocol changed?
Well, it's helpful like if you don't know that. Like if you type in --debug and it just says, oh, bad option. It's kind of jarring. You're like, what? What did I do wrong? Did I compile this wrong?
Yes, but probably it should not launch inspect by default, because that's a bit different than just printing an error message will be fine there. And
oh, you're saying not an alias.
Yep.
But we needed, well, the objection is that debug break needs to actually cause something to happen. I guess we're saying though now it doesn't need to because it's a new version and version detection should help. But we should still throw a warning to help out users.
Well, if it's not going to do something, if it's not going to actually break, then it should just be an error. If it's going to be an alias for inspect break, and then it should print the deprecation warning.
So my stance is that I don't really see that much purpose of having it be an alias. However, I think in either case, it should print something, whether it is going to be an alias or it is just going to print that you should use inspect break.
we do a
So
quick,
as Raphael points out in the issue, what this means is that if I have an IDE, if I have an IDE, if I have, you know, Visual Magic Code 1.0 and I'm debugging Node 7 happily, and then I want to start using Node 8, my IDE will no longer be able to debug it. I'll have to buy it, I'll have to upgrade or something. And
that's the case anyway. Either way.
well, if we make it an alias, it's not the. Oh, it is the case because it uses a
But the
different protocol.
changed, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Does the inspector protocol exist in version 6? I don't remember. But I think the debug protocol still exists, right? So you'd probably still be using the debug protocol from an IDE that old, right?
For the most part, yeah.
If it's not there, has there been any serious consideration given to backporting it? Can it be backported?
It's from 6.3, so we can never get it in 6.2. But I don't know. We have to check VS Code and VS and the other ones. If what version detection logic they use. They just detect the version, and it's based on that they activate one protocol or another.
Okay. So at this point, it's not really practical. So yeah, somebody's going to have to upgrade their IDE anyway, no matter what we choose here with the command line options.
So I have down here that we have agreement that we need to somehow restore debug and debug break. The only question we have is, should they be an alias to the inspect equivalents, or should they just print an error and then exit? I don't think we have consensus on that.
Great. Do we want to take a straw poll real quick?
Before that, I'll quickly add that if we are going to print something, I think it's awfully nice of us who are our users that, given that it's so little effort to make it an alias, because we're going to do something regardless, right? Let's not throw people into like rerun the command with another flag before we let you do anything.
Well, I think Nikita was saying the problem is that these aliasing means they'll have different behavior in 8 than they did in 7, and maybe that's not fair.
And it may not be expected.
So no, well, debug break should only work with -- inspect. If you don't specify anything else, debug break, that I think I agree is an error. So the concern I'm worried about is that there's so many people who have muscle memory of using inspect debug break, and if we can avoid an extra invocation of Node for them to let them debug, I think it's nice of us to do.
And well, I don't know, like, will they just keep using that then? Because, like, I mean, eventually we're probably in like 8 or 9, we're going to remove it anyways, and you'll have the same problem.
We'll give them a deprecation warning. Thing is, we had a very accelerated cycle to remove the old debug protocol, right? So people haven't learned that inspect break is what they should use. We haven't given them a deprecation warning for this still. So I think it gives them time to get used to it by 9.
Raphael indicates that IDEs tend to use -- inspect -- debug break, and that restoring the debug break as an alias will have that continue to work.
Yeah. So for those that have already updated to the inspect protocol, I think one of the issues is there's already IDEs that support the inspect protocol but use debug break, and without restoring it as an alias, then those users otherwise would not have to upgrade their IDEs. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, but what I think I'm hearing from everyone today is that since they're using version detection anyways, if from 8 on we say you need inspect break, like, yes, in nightlies it's kind of awkward right now because it's somewhere between 7 and 8, but once it's 8, then you just know from 8 on, if you detect version 8, then you run inspect break. Like, that's easy logic to fix. Seems to me.
I guess. I mean, the debug break alias is really, really low cost, and if it smooths things out for people for one version,
and I don't want to make assumptions about how easy it is to update commercial software that's doing this stuff that users are having to buy and deploy.
Okay, I have no
Yeah,
objection.
I don't really like it, but if everyone really feels like we should do the alias thing, then I guess let's do the alias thing.
Are you okay with that?
So, so is that directed to a particular person?
Oh yeah, Nikita, because I think Nikita was one who was concerned, right? On mute, I guess, Nikita.
About the alias, yes. I think I'll just discuss that on GitHub. I think that I need to check something.
So, adding it as an alias, printing a deprecation warning, we just need to make sure that the deprecation warning has enough contextual information. Not just go use this, but go use this because.
Yes, my main concern was about the editors because one of the reasons why that question was raised, why that issue was raised, is because of the editors not supporting the new flag yet, and that they will have to be patched. And my concern was about the behavior difference and exactly what how will the editors behave if we add that in as an alias, and if they would expect that, and if that alias would break something worse than in case of without an alias. I might be wrong here. I will probably need to check that, so I will just abstain for now and take that back to GitHub when I will have more information.
Okay, so I think what we're at is that debug break, we believe that debug break should be added as an alias to print a deprecation warning, but Nikita wants to investigate one thing to see if if the alias route is gonna cause problems. So once Nikita can check that, verify that it won't cause problems, then we should restore debug break. It should be an alias and it should print a deprecation warning. Finished. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, we're supposedly out of time, but I'm going to keep going unless people object. Next up, we have the OpenSSL issue. I think I'm inclined to skip that unless there's somebody here who's prepared to frame it in an informed way.
Well, I think my understanding of the discussion on that one was that we had discussed it. You know, Shigeki had suggested that we leave it as is for 8 for a number of reasons, and look at pulling it in 9. What I'm not sure is why it's on the agenda, whether it was to discuss it, pulling it into 9, or if it was something else.
Maybe someone should take an action item to reach out to Shieki and sort of try to suss that out. And going once.
I can take the action to confirm with him that, I guess it's if it's, I guess maybe the history we can see and look who added it. I think it might have been Miles, but I can check with him.
Pretty sure you might be right. Let me check. Oh no, actually, it was Sam Roberts who added it.
Okay, well, I'll follow up with Sam and ask him. I've had discussions with him as well, and he's in agreement with what I just described. That
Okay.
basically, you know, for eight, we're not going to pull anything new in at this point, but for 9, we should look at it. I guess in that context, I think he was probably putting it on for the discussion in terms of, you know, do we need to get the okay to pull that in for 9?
I see. Okay. Yeah. Why don't you see what you can figure out, and if we need to talk about it at next week's meeting, maybe we can invite him as a guest just to make sure that, like, you know, we cover everything that needs to be covered.
Sure.
Okay, so moving on, I think the last item then is invert dependency between core and readable stream. Oh no, it's the second to last item because we also have an update on 8.00. Matteo, go ahead.
I would say let's defer it. We are out of time, and we can talk it even in maybe not this meeting after we close 8.00. It's not going to ship into 8.00 anyway.
James, you want to give an 8.00 update?
Yeah, just very quick. I updated the 8x branch and 8x staging branch yesterday. I did a test build and a CICGM build. I'm investigating a number of failures that occurred there, and there is an ongoing regression, performance regressions, quite significant with event emitter and streams that I'm investigating. It's apparently has roots in some V8 changes. I'm looking at those, but I'm going to be going ahead with the RC release candidate 0 build later on today, with the caveat that between now and either the next RC or the one after that, there still might be a couple of breaking changes. So today's is not necessarily a true release candidate, but it's as close as we can get.
Are those performance?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, those performance regressions, are they seen in 8 as well? I'm just wondering if we need to add the nightly builds for 8 yet in the benchmarking, like the nightly benchmarks.
Yeah, I would, if you can, I would go ahead and do that. I'm seeing the regressions in master in 8,
Okay.
and it's compared to 7.10.
Right. Okay. I figured 8 was still covering it, but if you think it's getting close, I can go ahead and do that.
Yeah. I need to run the full benchmarks again after 5.8 landed. I think it was like last week I haven't had a chance to do that, and that's what I was going to do today to see if it's still as significant. But the V8 team is investigating to see what is causing it. It appears to be some change within V8 that led to the regression. And it is quite a sizable, significant regression. So we're not talking like a small bump.
Just to give an update, the problem was one part of the problem in Streams 1 was unoptimized. Was that Crankchat had an optimized path for array.shift, which is not part of which was now has been ported to the 6th. What will be the 8.6 branch, and if you need to be backported to 5.9, it will ship with that.
Yeah, I think it should be possible to backport it to both 5.9 and 5.8. I think we'll have to float this as a patch because upstream doesn't backport performance fixes. The other alternative is that given that array.shift is so uncommon, we do have a workaround that we could do in the source code itself that would resolve this problem. So the challenge with the backport is that given that V8 5.8 is still stable and 5.9 is still going to be stable, we have an outstanding issue with dealing with version numbers. If we float a patch on a stable version, then it becomes really hard to talk about which V8. When we talk about a V8 version, it becomes really hard to talk about whether it's the node version that has a floating patch or not. So that's the one concern. But I'll follow up with folks on how to get this done.
Shim is shifted very common in that code, I would have to say. So,
this particular pattern is not that common. Like a very small array with a shift.
Does Francisca have anything to add to this? I feel like whenever we talk about these sorts of things, she has something to say.
Ali and Mattia already said everything.
All right. Confirmation that we got the story right. Cool. Anything else on 8.0, James?
I would just say that once the release candidate builds are started, I appreciate everyone kicking the tires on it, doing testing, and looking for any additional regressions. The release is scheduled for May 30th. Oh, the other thing is we do have a pull request for NPM 5. It'll be beta. It's planning on going stable before the 30th. I've told them that I have no problem getting it in, but and getting it into the release candidates if the PR can land in time. But that if it doesn't go stable by the 30th, then it would be pulled back out. So that is the plan on that. So if anyone can help look at that PR and give it some testing and make sure that it is good to go. And that is it.
Cool. I guess it's time to solicit questions, Q&A time. And while we're waiting for questions to come along, I will read off what the next few meetings are. We have the next CTC meeting will be 1 week from today, but at, that time is wrong, right? It's going to be at 2000 UTC, if I'm not mistaken. And the next TC39 meeting will be on May 22nd, and I believe that one is always at 2000 UTC, 8 p.m. UTC. There is a Google Calendar link that you can follow to find out when diagnostics working group is meeting, or postmortem working group, or LTS, or anything else like that. I don't know if the release team has meetings, those sorts of things. And the community committee, there's a good one. And in the meantime, do we have any questions?
I saw one, and that was, how can I start contributing to Node.js core? I'm new to Node.js.
My answer is nodetodo.org, nodetodo.org.
Good answer. I like it. I posted that.
There's also code and learn events that happen periodically. There will be one in China, in Shanghai, in the middle of July, taking place around the same time as JSConf CN.
I think that's everything, and we're already plenty over time, so I think we can call it there.
All right.
I would just want to mention one more thing. I posted 2 issues about proposing dechartering of the docs and test working groups, and a proposed charter for LTS working group. If everyone could go take some time to take a look at that. They don't need to be discussed today, though.
Awesome. All right, that concludes the public portion of the CTC meeting. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.